I suppose I'm very interested in technology broadly, and technology doesn't just mean digital technology. Even the tools that made our first houses and caves were technology. And so I'm interested in the tools that will make life better for everybody. And in the work that we've been doing in the studio over the last 2 decades, our priority has been trying to redress the negative placemaking that seems to have been happening. The modern movement was this sort of exciting phase that affected painting and music and also affected architecture. But one of the negative sides was this drive that stripped away a lot of the humanity from the places and buildings that were created. And so very two-dimensional buildings, very monotonous and in some senses sterile places were made. And so for me, the digital technology, the more direct physical technology, all of the technology in the studio, we are looking at how you bring that together to make places inspire people again and try to be a counter voice to this globalized city making that's been happening, which has been really depressing. You travel, and the more you travel and the more new bits of cities get made, the more similar they are to everywhere else. And that's heartbreaking because people are different and the societies underneath are different. And yes, we're all connected more than ever with the digital technology. So there's this need for amplification of character and spirit and idiosyncrasy. And the digital side and the very physical tools and materials and new things that are coming up are all, for me, in the palette of things that us as designers can take and bring together. We've been working with companies like Google on their new headquarters in California, working with a company called BIG, working in London on the new headquarters. In fact, those cranes just over there are our cranes for a building that is going to have 100,000 square meters. Some of the technologies are about reconnecting with the past. So for example, this will be the London building with the greatest use of wood in its facade. And you sort of think of new technology and sort of huge progress, but then to mix that with the most primitive grown material of wood that we've rediscovered its phenomenal sustainability credentials as well. And if you can harness and make really flexible buildings, which wood traps huge amounts of carbon from the air, and as long as you make flexible buildings that will really be reused and can be repaired, then there's no reason why those buildings shouldn't also still be standing in centuries from now. And that's a good way, if we use wood more than ever, that we can take carbon out of the air. And so in a way, we've been using contemporary technologies to harness things that are sort of deep in our humanity. And so in Shanghai, we've been doing a project which uses 1,000 semi-mature Chinese mountain trees just off the Suzhou Creek. It's funny to be standing here now, actually, with our own buses going past below, but with the buses that we worked on, for example, I think there's this idea that design gets divided up into all these different areas. There's sort of art design, which designs sculptures. There's landscapes design that designs paving and plants. There's building design that's one kind of design, and infrastructure design that's another thing. And in the studio, we've always seen them all as one world of three-dimensional thinking that we all interact with, that impacts you, that has functional criteria, environmental criteria, and the opportunity, if it's thought of together, to make just better places, which just seems obvious. So it seemed weird to me why it's all chopped up. And so when we were working on the buses, it was almost hilarious. There's such architectural sophistication in the UK. There really is, in interior design and in building making. But buses, even though they're like a 2-story building on wheels, and in fact, of our buses, there are already 1,000 of them, the mindset didn't apply the good practice in emotional design of interiors to these funny things that were on wheels, and thought, no, that's a bus. But you're actually more likely to see a bus than any building we've ever designed, because there's 1,000 of them, and each one of them is like a little medium-sized building somehow. And so our focus was on how you could make it use 40% less energy, which was exciting, by making it a hybrid. But then also, if someone is going to get that bus for the next 20 or 30 years, their working career, and each day maybe spend 45 minutes to work, 45 minutes coming home from work, the mindset had been completely wrong of the public transport bus makers from the last 20, 30 years. For some reason, they just saw people as digits that needed to be moved around and didn't see them as living, breathing, passionate people who have a life, who will have children, possibly grandchildren. And does this add to their life or detract from it? The integration of digital technology into our cities is clearly a very contentious subject, but something that I'm very interested in how we get it right. Because when you're totally fit and healthy, you are less in need of support and help. But as all of us will be in different states of need during our lives, the idea that a bus already knows that there's somebody waiting who might need some help to get into it, or a building that you'll need to go onto it, or other forms of transportation, or just facilitating us and ourselves. And we all have family members, and we all know that us ourselves will be in varying states of need. The idea that the city can then help and support that is amazing. And I personally want that. But you can see that it inspires fear for people feeling that their data can somehow get used. And I think our time ahead is working out how ethically we juggle and balance both of those. But the idea that you reject it all seems not to serve the human in us. And in our work in the studio, our focus is all on how we support our humanity. And there's strong ethical dimensions, and we are very interested in how we balance those and learn about how to do that. And you're combining the physical, the digital, and the ethical all together. That is, I think, an exciting future.